The Buckeye State Sheriff's Association is providing this podcast as a public service for informational purposes only. The views and opinions expressed by the host or guest of this podcast are their own and may not reflect those of the BSSA, employees of the BSSA, or any of its officials. Any reference to a specific product, entity, opinion, issue, or other such item does not constitute an endorsement or recommendation thereof by the BSSA. If you have any questions about this disclaimer, please contact the Buckeye State Sheriff's Association.
My thing that I really get so much joy out of, and I do on a very regular basis, is helping people solve their problem. Because I'm so visible in the community and I try to be very accessible. I mean, I have my cell phone number on my business card. I take all phone calls. I return all phone calls. Again, solving problems.
Welcome to the Buckeye State Sheriff's Association podcast, where we'll introduce sheriffs and deputies across Ohio. During this conversation, you'll get to know the men and women serving you and hear all about the good work being done in the Buckeye State every day. Now let's join your host, Paulding County Sheriff Jason Landers, and today's special guest.
Welcome to the Buckeye State Sheriff's Association podcast. We're here today with Sheriff Mark Wasylyshyn from Wood County. I'm Jason Landers, Sheriff of Paulding County, the host of today's podcast. Sheriff Wasylyshyn, we're glad to have you in. Your episode number 10. We've got 9 episodes that are up on Spotify, Apple Podcasts. They're on YouTube. You can listen to them on those formats. Mark, your episode number 10. Welcome in from Bowling Green.
Well, wonderful. Thank you. I'm glad to be part of this and honored that I was asked to be on your program. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm excited about it. We went through the board of directors and got a lot of those folks around. Then I started getting into some of the sheriffs who are, they're at the end of their tenure. They're going to retire at the end of this year. And as I was looking for our next episode, which is going to be this one with number 10, I mean, you're just one of those guys, Mark, that just brings a lot of energy. You have a lot of involvements. You've been through we'll get to your affiliation with the Buckeye Sheriff's Association. We'll talk about the National Sheriff's Association, all those things, but just really energizing to be around you. And I'm excited to talk with you today, to connect you with your community, which you've already done a really, really good job doing for a couple decades and more. We'll talk about your sheriff tenure and those types of things. And so I'm excited. Let's get started today, Mark, by just telling us, who is Mark Wasylyshyn?
Well, I'm very honored to be sheriff of Wood County. I think it's the best job in the world, and I love what I do. I was born and raised in a small city in the northern part of the county called Wasylyshyn, and I am a first-generation American. My father immigrated to this country from Ukraine, and my mother's parents immigrated to this country from Ukraine. So I actually spoke Ukrainian before I spoke English as a child. I'm the youngest of 4 children. 3 out of the 4 turned out well. My oldest sister just retired as a general surgeon specializing in breast cancer. The next oldest sister just retired during COVID. They all retired during COVID. A clinical psychologist, and my brother has a law degree, and he worked for Federal Express. And I am a public servant and the sheriff of Wood County. And I graduated from Hillsdale College, which is in Hillsdale, Michigan, with a Bachelor of Arts degree. And I've been married to the same woman, Jenna, for 34 years. And we are the proud parents of boy-girl twins who just turned 25 in September. And my son does inside sales for a company called Rolled Alloys. And actually, he graduated from Hillsdale College, my alma mater. And my daughter is a third-year medical student at the University of Maryland in downtown Baltimore, Maryland.
Yeah, we talked a little bit about Hillsdale College. Mark, you and I did when my son was going through the recruiting process. That was one of the schools. Matter of fact, came down to the school he chose, the University of Findlay in Hillsdale, and they're competitive in basketball, probably other things. But, man, what a nice conservative school is Hillsdale College. Great campus. Just the people around there were so welcoming. And, I know you and I talked about that a little bit, that you had went to Hillsdale and that your son went to Hillsdale. And to me, it's kind of like a hidden gem within I would say, the city of Hillsdale, the way that's situated, and just the campus and the buildings. That's a really, really nice campus there.
It's an amazing place, and I had a wonderful experience back when I went, and my son had an outstanding experience also. Just really was good for him, and just the values that they teach, and free enterprise and people being responsible for themselves. It's just there's so many wonderful lessons that they teach outside the classroom and in the classroom that are lifelong lessons.
I thought one of the interesting parts, just thinking about Hillsdale and the coach that we built a relationship where through that process, he told me Hillsdale doesn't have any debt. When they have a vision and they want to build something, they don't build it and break ground until they have the funding to fund the project. Is that how you know that school? I mean, I think that's remarkable.
Yes. They're known for they've never taken a penny of government money. So they don't have any of the government controls, but they were the first college in the state of Michigan to graduate a female, and also the first one to graduate someone of color. So they're very proud of that. And not only will they not break ground for a building until they have it fully paid for, but the endowment to maintain the building has to be funded also. And they just built a $32 million chapel. And again, they had all the money up front, including the endowment to pay for the maintenance of the chapel. It's the largest chapel built on a school campus in the last 100 years.
And it's remarkable. That was one of the things that when we were on the initial visit, that chapel is outstanding. It is amazing. Let me ask you a two-part question. Number one, you grew up and went to Rossford. From Wood County, you go off to Hillsdale, Michigan. What drew you back to Wood County? Question number one. And then tell the listeners about Wood County. Obviously, Bowling Green, Perrysburg. Talk about Wood County in general. What drew you back? And then talk to the listeners a little bit about what is within Wood County.
Sure. Wood County was home. My father passed away, unfortunately, when I was a freshman in college. So I went back home and lived with my mother. So I helped her around the house and did things. And I actually started out in real estate. I bought houses that needed renovation in Toledo and fixed them up and rented them out, or would occasionally flip them, and did that. I was always interested in law enforcement. So then I went to Owens Community College for the police academy. But to tell you about Wood County, we're the 7th largest county in the state of Ohio. Area-wise, we're about 620 square miles. It's a very diverse county, which is great for us. We have a lot of agriculture. We're in the top 3 or 4 counties in the state for wheat production, soybean production, and corn production. So agriculture is a big part of our economy. We also have industry. We have a division of Chrysler, which is Stellantis, that make torque converters, and I believe something with steering columns in the northern part of our county. We have First Solar, which right now is one of the larger employers in the county. They have multiple facilities in our county. Actually, they just bought a 1.3 million square foot building. It's the largest building in our county that originally Peloton had built. This during COVID, they were really doing well, and they thought, wow, everybody's going to want these bikes at home and do this stuff. They found out the hard way that people like working out in gyms, I guess. So they've had major financial problems. So the building sat vacant for a couple years. First Solar bought it. They're now using it for warehousing, and we're told they're going to do production in there. And they're in the process of building at least one, if not 2 other buildings. So they now have probably 7 or 8 buildings in the northern part of our county, spread out in a few different townships and one city. And they are a great tax base. We have a very large Amazon distribution center that is a large employer of the county, along with FedEx and Home Depot and UPS, because we're geographically situated. We're I-75, which is our longest northwest interstate in our country, goes through Wood County. So we have about 34 miles of that. We also have I-80 goes across the east-west part of our county. So people really in the distribution world love that. They also like that it's a one day's drive of 60% of the U.S. population. So that's kind of the claim to fame for this part of the country. You mentioned Bowling Green. Bowling Green State University is in the county seat, and that they have around 20,000 students. So that's a big impact on the county. And then in Perrysburg, which is the second largest city, has the world headquarters for Owens, Illinois, which is a Fortune 100 company, maybe Fortune 200 company. So they have their world headquarters there, along with, so we talked about agriculture, industry, universities. We have Owens Community College that's in Wood County to educate. We also have retail. So we have several, Home Depot to, a couple Walmart stores. And then we have upper scale. We have an area called Levis Commons that has high-end retail and hotels. We have a lot of hotels. So our economy is really diverse. So when the country has different issues, which, back in 2008, 2009, we had the banking crisis. At that time, the farmers were doing well. So they were buying tractors, doing things which helped our tax base. And then other times where maybe industry is doing better. And then, when the economy gets better, retail does better. So our sales tax, little piece that we get of that is a huge part of the county budget. Our county has very little debt. They're very proud of that. Actually, not to jump too far ahead, we just did a $28 million renovation expansion of our jail. And unfortunately, the way the money goes from the state is that they punish the counties that do well and say, we're not going to give you any money for jails. But if you are maybe don't do as well in the budgeting, or some of the poor ones, they give them money for the jails. So we got zero money from the state. The county could have paid cash for the entire project, but they decided to do bonds for half of it. And they were happy with that because they're making like 5% on their money with their investment, and the bonds sold at like 3%. So they're making 2% of the money versus paying cash for the jail expansion. So we're very, very fortunate that we're able to have everything we need to run this office.
Man, Wood County it's very impressive to hear you talk about that. What's the population of Wood County?
Population of Wood County is 132,700. We have 5 cities, 19 townships, and 21 villages. And of the 620 square miles, I meant for law enforcement for approximately 420 square miles.
Yeah, so for folks listening, this thing's not only going to be played in Wood County, Ohio. This is going to go across the state, across the country, and my golly, it's accessible across the world. Wood County, Bowling Green, situated due south of the city of Toledo, so you're in the northern part of Ohio towards the west, for those that aren't familiar. Now, if you are familiar, when you come around the south side of Toledo and in through Perrysburg, that's where the Wood County line really could confuse some folks, right? Because it blends into the south side of Toledo. Am I correct?
Well, generally the river, when you come across the Maumee River, there's a little piece of Toledo, East Toledo, that's on our side of the river. And then the 2 cities that border Toledo would be, from the north, would be Northwood and Rossford. And then as you travel a little bit further down, Lucas County follows the river. Wood County's on, the river becomes the borderline once you get to Rossford. So Maumee would be another city in Lucas County side, which is across the river from Perrysburg.
Yeah, that's interesting. Let's go back to talk about you just a little bit more and how you got to where. So you talked about Rossford, you talked about going to Hillsdale, and then Owens Community College. So what year did you come out of Owens, get certified as a peace officer, and then walk us through your professional career in law enforcement, if you would, coming up to 2004, 2005?
Okay, well, we'll try to get through some ancient history here. I went to the police academy around 1988. In that time frame, 89. I then worked part-time for Perrysburg Township Police Department for about a year and a half, 2 years. And then I went full-time with the city of Perrysburg in September of 1990. And it was a great time to get on. I was kind of the young guy on an older department. So I was very high activity and also was always taking on more things. So when the chief needed something done, I'd be the first to volunteer to do something. Or I remember one time there was a lieutenant messing around with batteries for portables. And I said, what are you doing? He kind of said, well, every year I got an inventory. We get new batteries, all that kind of stuff. I said, well, you want me to do that? So he goes, sure. So he happily handed me over the box, and I then became in charge of our radio system. At one point, I became a DARE officer, and I also did Safety Town. They had a great Safety Town program that I had it up for 12 years. But I became a sergeant after being on the Perrysburg Police Department after about 7 years. And I also became the public information officer. The chief and lieutenants at the time were like, hey, we don't like dealing with the media. There was a situation where the media came out on one of the ships I was working, and they liked the way I dealt with the media. They said, hey, from now on, you're our PIO. I'm like, okay. So no training. I just did it. I had a lot of wonderful opportunities. But speaking of training, Perrysburg was very, very much into training. They had a large training budget, and I spent many weeks every year going to training around the state. They were very, very good about that, and it covered kind of an upper middle class community, so the funding was good. So I was very, very fortunate. And then I decided to run for sheriff. I had actually had a friend of mine that had been sheriff of the county early in my career, and he was always encouraging me to excel in law enforcement. He was a mentor of mine, and he encouraged me to run for sheriff. So I ran against a three-term sheriff in the Republican primary, and out of 10,000 votes, I won by 79 votes. So I'm a big believer in every vote counts. And it was kind of a hostile situation when I came in here. A lot of good old boys here from the prior administration. So it took a good couple terms to kind of get the ship heading in the right direction. And I've been very blessed to currently now I'm the longest serving sheriff in the history of Wood County. So I've been sheriff since January 2005. I'm in my fifth term. And again, it'll be 20 years in January that I would have been sheriff.
That's impressive, man. And, you know, when you can do this job for 30 plus years, that's one thing. You serve as sheriff for, 5 terms, just very honorable. Let's go back just a little bit, Mark. We're talking about connecting you with the citizens that you serve. What's the hobbies and interests for Sheriff Mark Wasylyshyn?
Wonderful. Well, my son and I are very much into cars, and my son actually has a little YouTube channel called JW Reviews, and just from vehicles we own, different friends of ours, other people that we belong to the local Cadillac Club and the National Cadillac Club. They've seen James's video and say, "Hey, would you like to do a video on my car?" So actually, he fortunately has a list longer than he has time for because it is a hobby, and he spends more time editing than he does recording, actually. So he and I go to a lot of car shows, both locally and even out of state, and we just have a blast spending time together. He sounds like me, he looks like me, but he's a much better version than me. I'm version 1.0, and he's like 20.0. So, and speaking of that, and being a 20.0 version, my daughter Catherine is twin sister. She is a third-year medical student at the University of Maryland, which is in downtown Baltimore. So every opportunity I have, I drive out. My wife and I will go out and visit her, or sometimes I'll pick her up to come home for different things. Or whenever I go to Washington, D.C., I will often fly into Baltimore. It's actually cheaper to fly into Baltimore. I'll be able to take her out to dinner, and then I just take the train up to D.C. for different meetings because I go to Washington several times a year. So I love spending time with family.
That's awesome. Hey, this episode is funded by the Buckeye State Sheriff's Association. Let's talk a little bit about your involvement throughout your tenure as sheriff, or even before, if that's where it takes us, with the BSSA. Talk about any positions that you've held, committees that you might be involved with or chaired over your tenure as sheriff.
Absolutely. I always tell new sheriffs, and in the past, I've been invited to come in to talk to the newly elected sheriff's class, and I strongly encourage them to be involved with the Buckeye State Sheriff's Association. This is our voice in Columbus. It's a training arm, and that voice in Columbus is vital. So I, shortly after becoming sheriff, as soon as I was eligible, I ran as a district rep and served as a district rep for a couple years, and then I went to the chairs. So I've held all the different, sergeant of arms, secretary, treasurer, etc., and president in 2017. And during all that time, I've served on several committees. Most importantly, I believe, is our legislative committee. And although I don't always drive down to Columbus for that, I try to at least do the Zoom part of it if I don't come down in person. But that networking is so important. I'm looking forward to us going to Kalahari for our annual conference. Actually, I was involved when we first chose to go to Kalahari, which we've been there for quite a few years. And it's a great location. I'm spoiled because it's only an hour away. So there have been times I've had to come back for different things. I can run back and forth. It's close enough. But so important to be involved in that, just like I tell people they do all with the National Sheriff's Association, so that we have our voice in Washington, D.C.
Yeah, you're absolutely correct. And I echo what you say, and to educate people coming into this office. And I don't know so much. Matter of fact, I don't think I'm right about this. I initially thought if you didn't come up through the ranks, through the sheriff's office to become elected sheriff, I thought, okay, if you come from the outside of police department, maybe the state highway patrol, DNR, maybe you don't understand what an investment it is to commit yourself to the BSSA, to the monthly meetings.
Yeah, I'm the opposite of that. I think I may be more pro sheriff and the importance of, I talk a lot to different groups. I give a lot of talks. And I always emphasize we're the only country in the world that elects the chief law enforcement officer. No other country does that. I work directly for the people, and that is so important. That's something that we have to keep reminding the citizenry the importance of that. That's when the founding fathers of our country wanted everyone in government answering to the people, and you don't get any more than being directly elected by the citizens. So there's a huge difference between police and sheriffs. I've been on both sides, and I know that my police chiefs just had to keep the city manager and the mayor happy, and life was good. I need to answer to the 132,000 and make sure a majority of them like the direction we're going, and make sure that I'm visible and accessible to the people. And that's critical, and I think what is so important, and it was lacking in law enforcement, a lot of other entities, because they weren't engaging with the community.
It is important. It's a very humbling experience I've found in finishing up my third term, preparing. I'm on the ballot next week to hopefully get reelected to my fourth term. And so I think it's also equally as important to hire good people that work for us, right? So if you have, I don't care if it's from the communications officer that's the first call for help, if that's a scenario, if it's the corrections officer that's taking care of someone's loved one that whether they made a mistake or purposely ended up there, whatever the situation is, your courthouse security folks that interact with everyone that comes into the courthouse to conduct their business, or the patrol deputies that are out driving the cruisers with the word sheriff on the side, or if your name's on the star, however that is, those folks equally represent you when you are tasked with serving the people and elected by the people. And, like I said, I think it's just a humbling experience versus a really short amount of my career was at a local police department, and kind of what you just talked about with maybe city managers, mayors, councils. When you're tasked with, some would say, running for re-election every day, these types of things. But talk maybe a minute about your vision with the people that work for you. It's critically important to vet them and make sure that you're putting the best people you can in positions to serve the people on your behalf and the citizens' behalf.
Absolutely. I cannot emphasize that enough. Every time I interview new employees, which everyone meets with me before they're hired, and we have good conversations about honesty and integrity, because I think that's vital. I can train someone to do things, but I can't fix integrity and honesty. So we talk about that, but I also always talk about with dispatchers, for example. Our dispatch center gets over 36,000 911 calls a year. I'm responsible for the county 911 system. And I tell those dispatchers, your tone of voice, the way you deal with that person, that is their only, for many, many people, their only contact with this office. And if you're in any way rude or short with them or unprofessional, that is going to be their profession of this, their impression of this office. And I tell my road deputies, I tell them all the time, I don't care who you arrest, you go out there, you do your job, preserve the peace, which it doesn't say we have to enforce law, it says we have to preserve the peace. Go out there and preserve the peace. I will back them up on whatever arrest they make, but I always tell them, make sure you treat everyone with respect. That's the golden rule out there. Treat them with respect. And when you're out there and you're handling a call, I don't care if it's a smashed mailbox, you better act like that's the most important thing going on in your life, because you know it is to the caller. You may have just handled a fatal crash or been on a messy domestic. When you go out there and handle the smashed mailbox, they don't care about those things. They want to figure out how am I going to get my mail today at 3:00. And so I tell them, go look at things. Is there any evidence? Probably never going to solve it, but at least look, because you're not going to solve it if you don't try. And then in the jail, I always remind jail people that we're not here to punish people. We're here to keep them in a clean, safe, healthy environment, which our jail is. And I also tell them, treat everyone with respect. We're not here to punish. We're here to make sure that they're kept safe, and the clean, safe, healthy environment for the inmate makes it a clean, safe, healthy environment for the deputy working in the jail. And what I really like is when I bring through the grand jury, or I give a lot of tours of the jail, I want the public to see our jail. It's a beautiful jail. It's very clean. It's well run. I've got good people in there. I like it when I pull the deputy aside and say, hey, what's it like being at the Wood County Jail? Would you tell the grand jury if you don't mind? And they will talk about, hey, the food's really good. It's clean. Invariably, they will say we're treated with respect here. And that really makes me happy, because then that means the message got from me to my jail administrator, to lieutenants, to the sergeants, to the corporal, to the deputies, that we treat everyone with respect. And that's when you do that, and you're professional, and you have honesty and integrity, you're there.
Man, I love everything that you said, Mark, and it all goes back to that first call and the tone of your voice and how you treat people on the other end. And you talked about a couple of things that are just talking points of mine, and your scenario of, I don't care if it's keys locked in your vehicle, that is that person's crisis. And everything you talked about, I could reiterate. I have my oldest son's going into law enforcement. We talked a lot about just treating people fairly. If you are consistent and you treat everyone the same, you can do this job honorably. You will absolutely not make every person happy, but when you can walk down the fair, or you can walk in the grocery store, and someone that you've had an involvement with, and let's say it's someone that you effected an arrest on years ago, and they stop and talk with you or ask you how you're doing, I mean, that's really all the pat on the back that I would need to just understand that I did my job, I did it respectfully, I did it consistently. And you talk about treating the inmates, and I will tell the new hires exactly what you said. The person that might be here for disorderly with persistence, to the homicide suspect that's awaiting their trial, whatever it is, if we treat everyone the same and we have no favoritism over what we're doing, it's a really easy position as a sheriff to manage the jail and those operations. I really concur with everything that you just said there when you talked about that. Mark, let's talk just for a minute about your affiliation with the National Sheriff's Association. Now this is going to be episode number 10. On the prior 9 episodes, nearly everyone I've talked to has had affiliation with the BSSA. You will be the first episode with an affiliation on NSA, and you've been involved for quite some time. Talk to the listeners about your involvement with the National Sheriffs.
Absolutely. With my first term in office, there is a training that is allowed, that's paid for by the National Institute of Corrections, and it's a leadership training. At the time, it was held in Colorado, and they paid all the expenses, and it's only for first-term sheriffs. And I really got into it. It was one of the best trainings I've ever been to, and I always encourage new sheriffs to sign up for that and go to it. There's a waiting list, so they need to sign up right away. And during that training, there was a sheriff that was a mentor in the class. His name was Ted Camachius, and he was going through the chairs. I think it might have been the year before he was president, or a couple years before he was president of the National Sheriff's Association. And there was another employee of the National Sheriff's Association that was kind of ran the classes and dealt with all the instructors and all the issues, by the name of Fred Wilson. And for whatever reason, we hooked up and bonded during the class. And Sheriff Camachius from Iowa, strongly Marshall County, actually, is now a U.S. Marshal, so it's kind of fun at Marshals from Marshall County. But anyway, he encouraged me to get involved with the National Sheriff's Association. He said, you got to get on committees. So I immediately got on different committees, like their Government Affairs Committee, which would be similar to our Legislative Committee. And I also got on, at that time, it was called the Crime Prevention Private Security Committee. And I got on that committee probably in 2006, 2007. And the chairman of that committee was retiring as sheriff, and I was very involved in that committee. And he recommended to Ted Camachius that I be appointed the chairman of that committee. And I have been the chairman of that committee since 2008. It's changed its name. It's now called the Outreach Committee, which involves all the things that the National Sheriff's Association does, reaching out, whether it's crime prevention, private security, the tribal affairs, the chaplains, reserve deputies, we call them auxiliary or special deputies. There are probably 10 or 12 different things that fall under the Outreach Committee. And then I ran for the board in 2012, got elected. There were quite a few people running, and actually my twins helped me campaign. They were 7 or 8 years old, and they were helping me campaign for the seat on the board, and they're probably the reason I won. So I've been on the board of directors since 2012, and once you're on the board of the National Association, you can stay on there. There are no limits. Where with the BSSA, you go through the chairs, and then you're done, or unless you're a regional director. But once you're on the board, you're pretty much on the board. And then I got on the executive committee, which is elected by the other board members, and it's generally done by seniority. So I'm currently the most senior board member, not counting a couple on our current president, and Vern Stanforth has more years than I do, but he'll be off of the executive the board, although he's still a voting member as a past president. But I'll have the most seniority of the active board members, I believe, next year. So I've been on the executive committee since 2017, which is really what runs the National Sheriff's Association. And I also chair some different working groups. I chair the group that selects future locations. Our winter conference is always in Washington, D.C. The summer conference moves around the country, and I chair that committee that picks those sites. We actually try to go out 5 years. We know where we're going to be, and there's a whole spectrum of things that we look at to choose the right city. Is it big enough? How far away is the hotel from the airport? How long is the walk from the hotel to the convention center? Obviously, pricing, what are they willing to give us, et cetera. So that's a very busy group. And I also am head of the working group dealing with drones. A lot of legislation out there potentially that will affect all of us sheriffs. Right now, we're trying to get the authority to be able to mitigate drones that don't belong in the air. Like if you're at a football game and there's a drone flying over the people and you're wondering what's this thing doing here, it shouldn't be here, for us to be able to take it down. Right now, it's very, very limited on who can do that. So that's active. And other legislation on search warrants and what you can see from the drone and how you can use those things. So that's very busy. And, of course, there's a push on the federal level to not allow first responders to be able to use DJI or Chinese drones. So we're fighting that because DJI drones are by far the cheapest drones and the best drones out there. So we're working on that. We're making some compromises on that. So that's keeping us very busy. And then I serve on about 6 other committees.
Now, as you talk about the national,
as I do with this BSSA, I serve on legislative, and I think I'm on nominating committee and several other committees with the BSSA. Sorry.
Yeah, you're definitely affiliated with a lot of things with both associations. And if you're listening to this podcast and you're a deputy sheriff, you're a member of the NSA, you can also get on NSA committees, correct, as sheriffs or members of the National Sheriff's Association.
Yes, very important, and that's something that sheriffs need to understand too. Some of them they don't realize they can get on any committee they want. If you're a sheriff and you want to be on a committee, you will get appointed to that committee. We want sheriffs to be involved, and the more sheriffs we get involved, the better. And Ohio always does well. We get a nice turnout percentage wise of sheriffs that come to the winter conference and the summer conference, and that's really good because Ohio is a force to be reckoned with the National Sheriff's Association. No question about it.
Sure. And are you familiar with that process, the registration process for sheriffs that might be listening to this thing across Ohio, specifically that may not attend the BSSA meetings on a regular basis? How does a sheriff get on an NSA committee? Are you familiar with that process?
Yes. They basically, first of all Ohio sheriffs belong to the National Sheriff's Association. Our BSSA pays our dues, so they're automatically members. We're a 100% state. And when you come to it, you need to come to the conferences to be on the committees because we need to be participating in these committees. So if you see a committee you want to be on, you email the president of the National Sheriff's Association and say I want to be on court security committee, or hopefully want to be on my outreach committee or one of my working groups. I'd love to have more people on there. Let the president know, and then oftentimes they'll get a hold of the chairman and say, hey, so-and-so reached out, like to be on your committee. I've never seen where a sheriff said no to not having someone on their committee.
Well, I was asking for a friend, Mark, because we recently purchased our drones and implemented our drone program, and one of the committees you talked about chairing was that drone committee, so that's had a little interest in that.
Definitely would love to have you on there. We currently have 12 drones in my office, and we use them all the time, whether it's aerial photos from crashes that we handle to search and rescue, we use our drones a lot. They're a great tool.
Nice, very good. Let's talk just for a little bit about your tenure in law enforcement. You've been doing this job a long time. What are some changes that come to mind that you've seen just over your career in law enforcement?
Well, I'm going to talk about the change and then what remains the same. The biggest change is technology. No question, when I first started, we did not have mobile data terminals in the cars. We didn't have dash cameras. We did not have body cameras. Just very, we basically had a car with a cage and a couple of radios and maybe a shotgun, I guess, and some first aid kits, maybe a bottle of oxygen that you really weren't trained on how to use it. So technology has come a long, long way. Today, we all have, most of us should have body cameras, dash cameras, GPS on our cars. So that is the big thing, and all the computerization, the information available to us between agencies, etc., that we didn't have. But the one thing that's never changed is dealing with people and learning how to talk to people. I've always told people, most of the time, I can talk myself into a fight or talk myself out of a fight. I'm not a fighter, so I had to use my mouth to get out of those situations, to de-escalate. And that's something that has never changed and probably will never change. And again, there are times people are out there, they're on drugs or mental, serious issues where you can't de-escalate. But most of the time, you can de-escalate situations, and that's a skill that is so important in law enforcement and probably always will be important in law enforcement.
Yeah, it absolutely is. When you work in rural America, like we do over here in Paulding County, you have to be able to communicate with people. Having a gift of the gab sure does help you, because I, like you, would rather talk myself out of a physical confrontation than actually be in one. And as you said, there's times that you can't avoid it. Now, over nearly 35-year careers, or anything that just stands out to you, a specific case or an instant that you care to talk to the people about?
That there's one that was very, very early in my career. Actually, it was when I was just a part-time police officer, and I got dispatched about a young boy that was riding his bicycle along I-75. And so I drove up there, and I found the boy, and he took off, running, and I was able to catch him and got him in the car. And I asked him what he was doing, and he said, "Well, I'm going to Dayton." Well, Dayton from us on a bicycle, by car, is probably 3 hours. So by bicycle, it'll be a long way. And this boy was like 10 or 12 years old. And I said, "Why do you want to go to Dayton?" He said, "Well, because that's where my mother is." And he goes, "I know that when I go see her, then I'm going to go back into foster care, but I just want to go see my mother and tell her that I love her." And that really, really hit me and brought on early on all the different crosses people bear or the burdens that different people have. And it just really touched my heart that this boy just wanted to tell his mother that he loved her. And so oftentimes we see people do things and wonder, well, how could that person do this? Or why would this person do that? You need to know the back end of the story of what happened to them in their lives as a child, or other things that have happened to them in life that maybe they do the things they do because of horrible things that have happened to them in their lifetime. So that's been something to always keep in mind, that they're all human beings. They have a history, and many things are the way they are because of the way they were treated.
Man, isn't that a great statement right there? Mark, before we take the ad break here, anyone that knows you and your community that's going to listen to this podcast probably knows a lot of the answer here. But for me, it's one of my favorite questions to ask. What is your passion about law enforcement? And I like to say it this way, or ask it this way: what drives you every day? When you get up in the morning, what drives Mark Wasylyshyn to go serve your citizens?
I love the old cliche. I love helping people. My thing that I really get so much joy out of, and I do on a very regular basis, is helping people solve their problems. I have people, because I'm still visible in the community and I try to be very accessible. I mean, I have my cell phone number on my business cards. I have a rule with dispatchers. Someone calls if they want to talk to the sheriff. Actually, I had a call at 7-something this morning, called in the dispatcher. A woman just wanted to thank me about the way the deputies handled a death notification when her husband died. I take all phone calls. I return all phone calls. I get people calling me about problems that have absolutely nothing to do with the office of sheriff, but I know how to take care of. I had years ago, I had a school bus driver call me that was very, very concerned about a culvert on a road that she said, it looks to me like it's crumbling. I've called everybody I can think of. No one's doing anything about this. I really think this is unsafe. So I called my county engineer and said, hey, on your way home, would you please go look at this culvert? The school bus driver is very concerned. I told her I would call her back after you look at it. Sure enough, he went, looked at it, realized that it truly was a serious problem. He immediately closed the road and, ended up that, they had to rebuild the culvert. And I thank that bus driver for getting a hold of me. But it just, unfortunately, here she tried calling a lot of different entities. No one took the extra effort. Okay, who can I call to make sure that this thing gets inspected? I like that. People will call me about issues, whether it's, it's having trouble seeing an intersection because the bush is too big. I'll go talk to the property owner and say, hey, I know this is on private property. You don't have to trim this bush, but a mother just called me. She's concerned about her 16-year-old. I've never had someone say, sorry, Sheriff, I'm not going to trim the bush. They do those things. If you ask right, explain why you're asking, and then now what do? You just build community rapport with that person that made the complaint. That homeowner goes, wow, the sheriff cared enough to come out himself to talk to me about this. Again, solving problems.
Yeah, it's absolutely right. And I think it's, 12 years ago when I assumed the office of sheriff, it was very humbling to me when folks started to call me and ask for me specifically, or come to the office and ask to talk with me. And in my office, could we shut the door, and talked with me about something that was completely unrelated to law enforcement and just the trust that they put in their sheriff, man. I just think that's awesome the way that she answered that. We're going to go ahead and pay the bills now. We're going to take our break. We'll come back. We'll continue on with Sheriff Mark Wasylyshyn from Wood County and dive a little bit more into the Wood County Sheriff's Office and some of the operational things that are taking place there for the citizens right there in Wood County. Back after this break.
This podcast is sponsored by the Buckeye State Sheriff's Association. The BSSA is in Columbus, Ohio, and was established in 1931. The Buckeye State Sheriff's Association was formed to perpetuate an efficient organization of Ohio sheriffs and their deputies. BSSA provides an exchange of information pertaining to the duties, methods, and official practice of its members. The association also exerts such influence as may be necessary to bring about and preserve legislation in harmony with the needs of enforcement officials and the safety of the public. The BSSA supports the efforts of this podcast to promote Ohio sheriffs and deputies and their mission to serve and protect the citizens of Ohio.
Welcome back to the Buckeye State Sheriff's Association podcast. I'm Sheriff Jason Landers over in Paulding County. We have on today Sheriff Mark Wasylyshyn from Wood County. Sheriff, let's talk a little bit more about the Wood County Sheriff's Office. Tell the listeners the size of your agency. You talked a little bit about a jail expansion, things that's going on. Just take some time here and break down the size of your agency, what's going on there as far as staffing-wise. One of the notes I took from your website, the Sheriff's Auxiliary, the size of that and some of the things that they do. I'm just going to kind of give you the floor to talk about your agency.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. We have approximately 135 employees. We are a full-service sheriff's office. You're right, we have a jail. I'm responsible for the county 911 service, plus all our other law enforcement, civil process, all those things that we do. So just to kind of touch on some of those, our jail, we just completed a $28 million renovation expansion. We were woefully short on holding cells and observation medical cells for all the people that have been detoxing and all the people we have with mental health issues. It's not just a Wood County thing or an Ohio thing. It's a national issue that sheriffs run 85% of the jails in our country. We are the number one providers of mental health care in our country. What is that telling you? We're all running a mental hospital with our jail. A vast majority of the inmates, and we've done studies on this, occasionally we'll do a snapshot of our inmates. 85-90% of our inmates are here directly because of mental health issues and directly or indirectly due to drug issues, whether that drug is alcohol, people self-medicating with different drugs. I've never been to a bar fight where two sober people are fighting. It's alcohol, drugs, mental health is a huge issue in our country. And unfortunately, our society has dropped the ball when it comes to mental health care. We need more mental health beds. And because we don't have enough mental health care beds, we have people that are spending weeks in jail that should be in a mental hospital. It's not fair to the deputies working in the jail. It's certainly not fair to the inmate who's going through some very serious mental health issues. Even though we have a psychiatrist on call and we have mental health staff here, we have nurses in the jail 24/7. Our country is dropping the ball when it comes to that. We also did not have enough female beds, secure beds. So we now do. So any sheriff, although put out the vacancy sign, we have beds. So if any jail is overcrowded, you need to house some inmates, get a hold of us. We are happy to take your inmates. We're very proud of our jail. Not only does it look clean, smell clean, it is clean. We not only passed our Bureau of Adult Detention annual inspection. They inspect all the jails in Ohio. There are 92 jails in the state of Ohio. Some don't pass the inspection. We not only have passed that all 20 years I've been sheriff, we have received 100% on that inspection all 20 years. And I think I'm the only jail in the state that can say that. If there's another one out there, don't tell me, because I like to have the bragging rights of saying that I'm the only one.
I'll hold my next comment.
There you go. We get the Clean Plate Award from the health department on how well our kitchen is run. And we do all the food, not only for our jail, but for the Juvenile Detention Center and the Department of Youth Services. Our jail, we have a large jail garden that we have every year that we actually get donated plants from different nurseries in the county. They love donating to this. It teaches the inmates the skill about how to grow a garden, how to weed, how to water. We've had many inmates tell us, hey, when I get out of jail, I'm going to plant a garden. It saves the county over $6,000 a year in vegetables that we don't have to buy. We get a lot of tomatoes. We'll slice and dice them, freeze dry them, and then year-round when we have spaghetti or any type of tomato-based meal, we've got the tomatoes, and same with onions and peppers and radishes, etc., squash, the zucchini that we serve in the jail. So it's teaching a skill, saving money. We also have a lot of inmate programs, which most jail do, whether it's GED classes and different religious classes. And we're working toward, now that we got down with the jail expansion, we want to do the Ignite program, which that's a whole other topic, dealing on reducing recidivism by teaching inmates skills while they are in jail. So we're going to be starting that shortly. That started in Genesee County, Michigan, with Sheriff Chris Swanson, which Flint, Michigan is the capital, the county seat. He's really exciting. He did that, and Sheriff Hilton from Sandusky County started it a few years ago. So I think he was the first in Ohio. So we're really excited about that. We also have a library in the jail that's tied into the Wood County library system. So any books they want, they tell us what they want. If we don't have it in our in-house library, which is very nice, we actually can get the book from the library system. And we have volunteers, or the library pays for the librarians to come into the jail every week to work on that. Our dispatch center, super busy place, over 36,000 calls in the state. I love these matrix. They kind of grade 911 centers on how quickly they answer the calls. 99.99% of our calls are answered within 15 seconds. The remainder, 0.001% is answered within 20 seconds. We're really, really proud of that. We do all the initial dispatch for every fire and EMS in the county, and we do all the dispatching for 45 of the 53 first responders in the county. So it's a very happening place. And we started for some of the cities that have their own dispatchers, or the township has their own dispatch. Before, we used to transfer the emergency call, and then they would get the information a second time, and then they would dispatch out the fire and EMS. Now what we do, because we get all the wireless calls, which 98.2% of our 911 calls are wireless, so they come to my office. We now, with their blessing, they actually approach me. We now tone out the fire EMS as soon as we get that cellular call or that wireless call. And then after they're out there, we're the only EMD dispatchers in the county. So if it's an EMD call, we stay on the line, but we transfer the call or make a conference call with that entity so their dispatchers know what's going on. And if it's not an EMD call, we just transfer the call, and then they take over the dispatch once the fire EMS have been toned out, saving minutes. And as you know, when someone's having a heart attack or a stroke or bleeding in a car crash, every minute counts. So we're really, really proud and excited that we're doing that. The dispatchers do a tremendous job. It's a very, very difficult job. not something that I could do. Very challenging. Road patrol, very much I'm a big believer in visibility. I drive a fully marked vehicle. My chief deputy, all my people drive that have vehicles or are out there have fully marked vehicles except for the detectives. We need to be visible. When I start getting phone calls that they see too many deputies on the road, then maybe someone will drive an unmarked car. But until then, I wear the uniform. I expect my people to wear the uniform and be as visible as they can possibly be. We do vacation checks for our citizens. You go on vacation, we're gonna walk around your house when they get back. We print out a form that shows what deputy and what time they checked the residence, if they saw anything out of the ordinary. If it's something serious out of the ordinary, we actually call the people. We've had that happen in the wintertime. A tree fell and broke a window in someone's house, and it was very, very cold outside. We found it very quickly. We were able to get a hold of them. They were down in Florida. They called a neighbor that came over and boarded up the window, saved them from having frozen pipes and a big surprise when they got home from their trip. But just that letter that I sign to every one of them. I also, in reducing false alarms for alarm systems, we send a letter letting them know date or time that the alarm went off. Told them I'm happy they're using the alarm system, but maybe they need to change the battery or get it serviced, because usually during power outages, everybody's alarm goes off during electrical storm. So doing those letters decreased our false alarms. We also do vehicle lockouts. It's amazing how many police departments don't want to do lockouts. Everyone in the county pays taxes, so my deputies, they'll go into the cities. If that city doesn't do lockouts, we tell them, call us. I'll send a deputy out. We'll unlock your car. Great PR. And again, I'm hoping I'm shaming some of these police departments to start doing lockouts because, this is a service you provide for your people, but I'm doing it anyway. My auxiliary, you mentioned that, 30 members. They do a great job. They last year did over 217 funeral escorts. Wow. Really, virtually every funeral in this county. Actually, I'm doing personally. I know the people. I'm personally doing a funeral escort today at 12:30. So I personally do escorts if I know the people or should know the people. We also have six passenger golf carts plus a tram, and a friend of mine owns a golf cart business, so he donates the use of 10 6-passenger golf carts in addition to mine to be used at the county fair. And all day, every day, all 8 days of the county fair, we have a cart shuttle service running people all over the fairgrounds, from the furthest points to the parking lot, the radio dispatch. I get community volunteers. It takes 60 community volunteers to run these shuttles. One of my deputies schedules everyone. People love it. I've had some of the same people do it all 20 years. Tremendous PR. There are a lot of older people that would not be able to see their grandchildren show animals. There are times where little kids are getting cranky. Get them on a golf cart, run them around a little while. Their smiles are back on their face. Running people to the campgrounds, etc. Vendors getting their equipment in and out. One of the best PR things that we have going on. Tonight, we're going to have our 7th year of Trunk or Treat. We invite all the police departments in the county, all the fire departments, EMS, to come here to our office. We extended it to tow truck operators. They all come, they decorate their vehicles and hand out candy. We will have thousands of people. We actually have some volunteers that are going to come, some high school students, and do some volunteer hours with clickers, try to get people as they're coming on the property to see how many people we have coming on here. Normally, beautiful weather today, we'll have 2,000, 2,500 people come here. And people feel safe, obviously, coming here to get candy because they know who they're dealing with. It's a great event. I'll have my special response team dressed up in various, in their full gear, handing out county as people are online waiting to go through the trunk or treat. So it's a fun event. Speaking of the special response team, it's made up of not only my deputies, but I deputize members of full-time police departments to go through all of our training, and it's through the, and I can't think of the organization, Ohio Tactical Officers Association. We meet and exceed all their standards, and by me deputizing them, they have jurisdiction throughout the whole county. The police chiefs like it because I take on the liability. I like it because it all says sheriff, and it's my team. But it also saves my budget because now I have those entities paying their overtime to go on call outs instead of me paying for everybody on the team. And it builds camaraderie between my office and those police departments. So it's a great thing. They do a tremendous job. We also have an Are You OK program where we call people that are homebound, live by themselves. It checks every day. make sure they're okay. If not, we get a hold of a family member, say, hey, mom didn't answer her phone today. We tried multiple times, and then they will go check on them. We're doing the Christmas Spectacular for the second year. It's now branched out to 15 states. We were invited to be part of this. This is where we give a box of items the week before Christmas, and we tell people, hey, we're blessed. We're giving you a blessing. And we tell them if there's something in this box you can't use, we ask you to bless someone else. Those boxes, we have their sponsors. Home Depot is involved. Amazon. This year, Kroger is going to put a Kroger gift card in every one of those boxes, minimum $50 Kroger card. So this is just a surprise. They don't know it's coming, and we do it just before Christmas time. Kroger actually partnered with us this summer. We did a Christmas in July where deputies were given gift cards. They see someone out working in their yard. They look like, the place, they're fixing a place up, or you see someone look like they're struggling, or you do a traffic stop and you can tell, wow, their car is that, things are really rough here. We were giving out $50 Kroger gift cards. So we gave out, I think 25 of them in July. We also do a livestock registration, which is in partnership with the Farm Bureau. As you know, Sheriff, years ago, we used to have, I think it was called the Polk Directory. You could look up who lived where and get their phone number and call them, let them know there's a problem. Today, you go to someone has a livestock, it's running loose. Unless we've got other calls there, we don't know who to call. So we ask people that have livestock, hey, register that with us ahead of time. Let us know, who to call if there's a problem, if your fence is broken, there's loose animals or an injured animal. You want us to call your vet? You want us to call you? This is something that we've been doing for quite a few years, and again, reaching out to the people that have livestock. We do golf cart inspections, which I assume most sheriff's offices do. I personally try to do all the death notifications. If I'm not available, we always send 2 deputies to go out and do that. Probably the worst thing that I do, but I think most difficult thing, but I think people appreciate hearing it from the sheriff. So my auxiliary, we mentioned that, they help out throughout the county with different events, fairs, festivals that other communities have. We don't have to use sometimes. They get hired for different events. And they'll backfill if we have a lot of projects in the county, off-duty projects, things that my full-time guys can't fill. We offer it to our auxiliary. We also have a very active Explorer Post, which is part of the Boy Scouts of America. They help us in different parking lots, parking cars, but they also meet monthly here at the office, and they'll learn about things like collecting evidence and crime reconstruction. We teach them different skills. They have a special uniform they wear, and it's for high school students, sophomores on up to the age of 21. And some of them may be interested in going in law enforcement. Some may be out of curiosity, or some may just be wondering, looking for something to do. We have hired people from the Explorer Post. We've hired people from our auxiliary. So it's a great way to recruit and get new people. We have our Police to Citizen on our website. You had mentioned that, Sheriff, where people can go on our website and see what calls we're on, what's happening out there. I'm very, very much into transparency. We were the first in the region to have body cameras. I put dash cameras in my cars back in 2006, my first budget cycle. And today, we've had body cameras, I believe, for 8 years. We were one of the first in the region to have body cameras. I'm all about transparency and openness. We also serve, not only do we serve all the paperwork for common police court, but we also serve all the temporary protection orders and civil protection orders for the municipal courts. There was a block between cases that get bound over from municipal court to common police court, and there was a question of what got served, when it got served, what the status was. So I met with my common police, my municipal court judges. At the time, we had 3. Where there was some merging, so we now have 2. We do all their TPOs and CPOs. Again, another reason for my deputies to be in the cities and the other areas they have police departments. Again, all those people pay taxes too to the county. So I want to serve them. So this is another way for me to do more and serve more citizens of the county. And I'm sure I'm leaving a few things up. And we're having our Citizens Police Academy going on right now. This is an opportunity for people from all walks of life for 10 weeks. They come to the office, they learn about what we can and cannot do, and we will have different elected officials come in, where the commissioners will come in and explain what their duties are, what they do. The county engineer explains what his job is. The county prosecutor will actually walk them through a case and explain how they work the case and how they do those things. We'll tour the courthouse. People love it. It's just a great, great outreach to the community.
Man, my note book paper right here in front of me is just full of all these things you've talked about. I've just made these little notes, and I'm like, I got to ask him about that later. I'm going to ask him about that later. I'm going to look that up on the internet, man. Just a lot of good things going on in Wood County that's the service that you're providing and your office is providing for your community. I like the answer to this question. Again, I've stolen some things from sheriffs about this. Is there anything unique that you're doing regarding recruiting? Is there anything you have going on within all the school districts in your community? You have the universities there. Anything noteworthy that's going on with you guys in recruiting?
Sure. Well, certainly our DARE SROs that are in the schools get kids involved in the Explore Post, which hopefully that gets them in this direction. We've done different things on the internet, different YouTube videos that we put out. The number one thing for recruiting that has really, really by far worked the best when we have an open house. And we've had a couple open houses where we invited people that one night come in and say, hey, if you've ever wondered what it's like to work in a jail, come in today and tour the jail. If you ever thought about being a dispatcher, come today and watch what the dispatchers do. If you ever want to be a road deputy, come in today and meet with our road patrol, see the equipment they have, do a ride-along. We did it. We had 35 people come in, and we had our HR people here. It was in the evening. I believe we had like 20 applications filled out that night. That was shortly after COVID. We were really, really down on people. So doing an open house was, and we did it another time when we were down some people, and we were amazed at the people that they could have always done those things, but I think they were just waiting for that invitation to come and see it for themselves. And once they walked through the jail and said, wow, this is not a dark dungeon with, I think people have a mental image of people in dark dirt floor areas chained to the walls with tin cups banging on the wall. I think once they saw how clean, bright the jail is, they're like, wow, I could work at a place like this. So when they actually talk to dispatchers that are doing the job, very, very important to get people here. We're fortunate right now. We are virtually fully staffed, which for us, there's always attrition and people coming and going for whatever reasons. We are almost fully staffed throughout the office, so we're very fortunate. Certainly, much better than we were during COVID.
Absolutely, Mark. We're driven a lot by the statute here in Ohio and the things that we are required to accomplish as sheriffs in Ohio. Is there anything that you can think of that? I guess I'll ask it this way. There's a lot of stuff, obviously, that we enjoy and we're passionate about the office. Anything that you would like to see change or be considered as additions to the statute for the office of sheriff or otherwise?
Generally speaking, we want to do more. In other words, I know there's been talk in the ORC of having language. We're required to preserve the peace. How do we do that with road patrol? I know there's been talk because there's some commissioners go, well, geez, nowhere does it say you have to have a road patrol. Well, you're right. I don't have to have a road patrol, but I have to preserve the peace. So I think legislatively locking that in a little bit better. I think there are some other things that I'm always, like, for example, elections. I would have no problem if the ORC changed and it was only sheriffs that dealt with issues at voting and polling places. I want to do more, and I'm always looking for doing more. That is probably my marching thing, drives my staff nuts, because guess what? We're going to start doing this. So we're going to start doing TPOs and CPO service to municipal court. At first, they're like, oh my goodness. Turned out there aren't that many of them, and they're out and about serving papers anyway. So any opportunity we have that we can, in the ORC, that we can have more authority to do more ways that we can serve the public, I am for that.
That's very good. Mark, we're up against the clock here, but I want to ask you, is there anything that we've left out? I mean, you talked about a lot of really good programming within your agency. It's very interesting to learn about you as Mark Wasylyshyn and how you got to the position that you're in. I think you're very influential as a tenured sheriff across Ohio out of all 88 counties. When I came into this world as an elected sheriff, I was fortunate that I followed the footsteps of a sheriff who allowed me to attend some BSSA training functions and go to board meetings and experience some of those things. But getting elected back in 2012 and attending the new sheriff's training and then assuming the position when I did in 2013, I just got to tell you, you're one of those folks that I could take a lot of mental notes from listening to you speak and even some written notes on some things that you talked about. And I appreciate your time here today so I could learn more about you selfishly, but to connect you to the citizens of Wood County of which you serve. Before we part ways, is there anything that we left out or anything else that you would like to discuss?
Sure. Well, first of all, thank you very much and I appreciate your kind words. I love what I do. I'm passionate about what I do. It's probably you and your listeners can tell. I absolutely look forward to coming to work every day and the various challenges that we have. There are always challenges. But I guess if I were to have something advice for other sheriffs, and again, I appreciate your comments. I think the key is to continue and always engage with the citizenry. There are going to be mistakes. I make mistakes. I tell people, I believe there was a perfect man that lived here 2,000 years ago. The rest of us make mistakes. It's how we deal with those mistakes. My deputies make mistakes. When they make mistakes, I think what the public wants is for us to deal with those mistakes. What they don't want is for us to sweep things under the rug or ignore issues that need to be addressed where maybe our deputies aren't doing things as well as they could be doing, holding people to a high standard. If you do that, the public will support the sheriff even when the deputies make serious mistakes, as long as they know, hey, he's addressing it, he's dealing with it. And part of that community outreach, and this is something, fellow sheriffs will joke with me about this and make fun of me because I'm on TV all the time. I never say no comment to the media. Even if I can't tell them anything, I will go on air and tell them I can't tell them because that's all they want. They were sent down by their news editor to get a soundbite from the sheriff. And if we're handling a case and I say, right now I can't tell you about this because we're doing A, B, and C, or when I can tell you, I'll get back with you and build that trust with the media. I have media call me all hours of the day, and I will go out of they come to my house on the weekends or at night if they need a quick soundbite. I will do the interview. I'll throw the uniform on, have my car there, and give that story. Why? Because that way my people, my bosses, the 132,700 people we're counting, they see me on the news, hear me on the radio, see me in the paper, read about me in the paper. They know I'm not just sitting behind a desk doing nothing. And that builds that community rapport.
I couldn't agree with you more about being available to the community and giving them your personal cell phone number so they can communicate with you, because I really believe this. And this is what you were saying, if you don't talk to them, then they're going to speculate. They're going to write the headline the way they want to write it. They're going to tell the story the way they want to tell it. And, I couldn't encourage our first responders. I don't care if it's a fire department, fire chief, a police department, or anyone involved in that public safety realm. If you don't talk to them, then they get to write the story the way that they want. And I couldn't agree with you more. Well, Sheriff Wasylyshyn, I would like to thank you for being a part of today's episode. We would like to thank the Buckeye State Sheriff's Association for their sponsorship as well. For Sheriff Mark Wasylyshyn, I'm Jason Landers. I'll be right back here next month featuring another Ohio sheriff or deputy on the Buckeye State Sheriff's Association podcast.
Hi, my name is Bob Cornwell, and I'm the Executive Director of the Buckeye State Sheriff's Association, located in Columbus, Ohio. Thank you for listening to this podcast today. It was brought to you by the Buckeye State Sheriff's Association. With this podcast, we are striving to introduce you to sheriffs and deputies from around the state of Ohio and recognize their great work they do every day for the citizens of Ohio. For more information about our organization, Google Buckeye State Sheriff. Thank you.